Hey, welcome everybody. Welcome to the Spiritual Underground podcast. As always, I'm your host, Dan. Just to people that's just coming across this podcast, we're primarily 12-step recovery uh, related show. Most of my guests come in and tell their 12-step story, and but once in a while, I get people to come down my path. The universe has intersected me with quite a few people. All what I like to say, I bundle it up and say these people are all a force for the good because they all have different angles, and you can't I don't like labels anyway, so I keep on getting to meet these people who are forces for good and can bring us some uh, another another view, another perspective on the growing spiritually thing that we do here in 12 step recovery. So my guest today is Rosalia. And how are you doing today?
I'm doing
Do
very
that
well,
again.
Dan. Thank you so much
Good.
for having me on here. The name came out great. Pronounce it well.
Once
So,
I hear it once, I can do it. Yeah. But I have a gift and I get teased about it. I can remember names like crazy. I mean, my favorite story was a guy come to our men's home group once or twice, and then he disappeared, and he was gone for like 2 years. And he came back, and when he came back, I remembered his name, and I could say, "Hey, LJ, welcome back." And that made he touched him, man. Because somebody remembered him. You're struggling and bopping around town, drunk and doped up and stuff, and you don't think anybody cares, and he'll tell that story that my remembering his name uh, was a moment in his life. So everybody's got a story. Tell me a little about what you do and what is your just what do you do?
absolutely. And
Who
before I
are you
jump in,
really?
who am I?
Uh,
I guess that's a question I've been asking myself my whole
yeah,
life, right?
yeah,
And will probably continue to ask myself.
yeah.
So,
That what do you do sounds like your job, and I'm not as concerned about that. It's more of who are you? Yeah, and I'm
yeah,
not the same guy I was last year, or maybe even
right.
yesterday.
Yeah.
So go ahead. Before you did that, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I wanted to acknowledge what you do. I've worked with a lot of people in recovery, and you having this space and however else you're touching lives, just like by remembering that person's name, we don't know the ripple effect that that has on people on the soul at a soul level, at a deeper level, and also the synchronicities, how the universe uses us to help to make that change. So thank you for having this space. I I value this very, very much. I think we're all here to support each other on this awakening process, on our own journey, right? Um, in my opinion, we're all connected at such a deeper level that sometimes we can't even realize um, how much. So thank you.
Yeah. Well, you're welcome, and thank you for that. I feel that connection. I say this all the time, but at Johann Hari, I watched a TED talk, and he said that connection was the opposite of addiction. And I really, I'm so blessed with the men's home group I have. We got something going on that's really special, and you can feel the connection, and the people that come into the room for the first time feel it too. And they'll be either one. They'll either be scared and run from it, or they dive in because that's what they've been looking for is that connection. Feel it instantly.
That sounds a lot like our own hero's journey, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that building up that courage to dive deep and look inside. And I'll jump right into that if that's okay.
This
Yeah.
is great.
Okay, awesome. So I'll just give a little context and a little background for those that don't know me. My name is Rosalia. I was originally born and raised in Cuba. I lived in Miami since the year 2000. I became a nurse practitioner and I've worked in healthcare for over 10 years. In just different sectors, primary care, pain management, just different all sorts of different things. 2018 came around and I pretty much had an existential crisis. I had, was at the top of my career, top of my salary, but I had this very deep void, this very deep depression. I literally could not find I know it sounds kind of just because you always have a blessing in your life, even if it's just waking up in the morning. But sometimes we can't see that, depending on our mental health state and so many other things that we may be going through at that time. So at that time in my life, I couldn't see, the blessings in my life. I couldn't appreciate them. I couldn't feel gratitude for being alive, and I couldn't find the purpose for waking up in the morning. At that time, my frame of mind was just like, this is beep, right? Just waking up, going to work. Like, this doesn't make any sense at all to me. This humanity doesn't make any sense. And then I started asking myself a lot of the existential questions, right? Who am I? Like the question you asked me, why am I here? And all of these deeper, where is God? All of these deeper questions. So I started, I couldn't give up on life. I have children, I have family that depend on me. I have elderly that depend on me, that live with me. So I couldn't just kind of throw away the towel and be like, I'm done with this. So I started to look for avenues and started to look for help. And a lot of the times I find that taking that step is very difficult. It can be, I know it sounds weird, but unless you're going through it, it takes a lot of courage to say, I need help. I need it. I can't find a way, and that's okay too. And I believe that God, the divine, whatever you want to call it, brings and aligns people at the right time to help us. If we can look for that help, if we reach out. So I started reaching out and looking into these things. I was recommended different teachers through breath work, energy work, and just all sorts of different things. And I was like, well, that's good. I mean, at least there's something else, right? Other than traditional antidepressants and Western medicine. And, there's yoga, there's breath work, there's energy work, and I was kind of like entertained with that for a bit, kind of learning the ropes and learning different things, learning how to work with Akashic Records and just different modalities. But I was still missing something, which today I would say is almost like my connection, my personalized connection to source, to my higher self, to my guides, to something bigger than just myself, but myself at the same time within. So I was looking for that. I just didn't know what it was. But I still felt that emptiness. Um, and really on 2022 came along and I had a near-death experience.
Mm.
I was out and before this, like I told you, I was meditating, I was doing all these things, really trying to find that connection deep within. But it really wasn't until my near death that took a whole another aspect or level or depth to it, I would say. So I was camping in California and it was any other night for me. I didn't feel anything different, nothing abnormal. And all of a sudden I wake up at some point, a part of the night, and I see myself outside my body. So here I'm thinking, well, I must be dreaming or something similar to that. Okay. And then I started looking around and I could see all of this sacred geometry everywhere. I
Mm.
was like, well, that's weird. I had no idea what was happening. And then at some point, I started to get really scared and I started to freak out like, okay, something's seriously happening here, like something bad. Like I couldn't figure out what it was. And I had a thought, oh my God, did I die? And as soon as I had that thought, I was pulled into this vacuum that I couldn't run from, I couldn't get out of it. And I was pulled into this darkness, the darkness I have ever seen in my entire life. It's dark, no stars, no nothing, just pure darkness. And I was just floating, I guess, in this darkness. But then I started to live experientially all of my biggest fears,
Mm.
which I didn't even know I had, like all sorts of fears. And it was like, it was so scary for me every time I would come up to a fear. And I would keep dying over and over, kind of fighting this fear, these different fears. And it included guilt for things I had done, like just so many things. But all of it, looking back now, I could see all of it is more of like what was in my subconscious, maybe things I hadn't processed, maybe fears of, who knows, ancestral, like so many things that I had never
Hmm.
really faced before, or that I wasn't aware they were even there. But looking back at it now, it almost feels like, okay, all of that stuff was inside of me all along. I just never noticed it or never faced it. But it was so scary for me as a human. I'm like, what
Yeah.
what is all of this? Like, where's all this coming from? Like, why? I thought I was like in a hell loop of sorts, because I couldn't get out. I couldn't get out. I couldn't get out. And I would die in one and I would go into another and another and another. And I was just like, there was a point where I was just like, I just couldn't take it anymore. I was started to ask for God, to pray for God to get me out of there. I just didn't know what else to do at that point. I honestly, I couldn't think of anything else. And then after, I don't know, also, it doesn't feel like there's any time or space. I couldn't tell you how long it lasted or what. It feels very different. I don't know. It's kind of hard to explain. But at some point, I was taken into inside of a sphere, what it seems like a sphere. So I don't know if this is inside the earth or if this is inside some sort of geometrical sphere or the flower of life or some sort of sphere. And I could feel that I was there inside of it. And all of this sacred geometry was around me, moving like constantly. And at some point, I could feel I was one with everything, um, with all the elements, with everything. Um, and I kept asking for God, for God. That's all I wanted. And a form of God came forward at some point. So I say a form of God because my understanding of God has changed, and we can go into that later. Um, but at that time, it came forward in a way where I could identify it as God, and I could feel comfortable and I could feel safe um, with that. And unfortunately, my reaction to that, after praying so hard to have God in front of me, was to curse at God. So in Spanish, I was just cursing. I mean, the worst I've ever done it, like real bad. I was like, this is all your fault, all the death, all the cancer, all the kid, like all the poverty, all of it. I went and had it. And all my existential questions, all of it. I was just like, there was so much rage and anger and grief and all these, I guess, if you I don't like to label stuff, but like lower vibrational, I guess, emotions that were like inside of me that I just couldn't figure out why. And there was a point where God simply kind of gave me kind of like a half a smile, something like this. I couldn't see his teeth or anything like that. Place his hand on my shoulder. And at that point, that's it. The
Hmm.
biggest bliss, the biggest love, the biggest peace. There's nothing human I could compare to this at all. Nothing. Like I've worked, for example, with plant medicine, and I honor and I love plant medicine. It has a big space in my heart and has been a big part of my journey. But nothing has transcended, I guess, beyond a certain level, you know, to this.
Yeah, I can't imagine there would be anything more.
Yeah. So at that point, somehow everything was okay at that point.
Yeah.
And it was all just love. And it was this understanding and this no judgment. Yeah, no more questions. I don't know what happened, where the questions went. It's like all of them were answered at once, and you have nothing. It's just like, yeah, there are no words to explain it. But yeah,
I get it.
just that. And at some point, God showed me in front of me different holograms of my different lives. I can't tell if they're like past lives or parallel lives or what, but I knew it was me and I had lived it, and I could experientially feel the lesson in that lifetime. So I was male, I was female, I was from every continent, from every race, from every religion. And I was just like in pure awe, like I had so much compassion and so much love. Like I had a very difficult relationship with my dad, and there's so many things that I couldn't understand from his journey that I would judge, especially on the male side of things. I'm like, what? Why would you do? Like, no, like I would never do that. Yeah, I would. Yeah, I would. Unfortunately. So yeah, and see so many things I did that I had to learn. I didn't know, and it's there's just so much understanding for everyone's process. We're all just learning, and I've been you as well, and I've been there, and I know the struggle, and I felt so much just understanding for the entire journey um of humanity. I don't know.
Mm.
Just so much love at that point. Um and a lot of like no judgment. Um and then after that I was able to see my entire family on my dad's side. All of them, all of us were together in a circle, and we were choosing different lessons we were going to teach each other. Which,
Mm.
unless I had seen that, I would have absolutely not happened. Now, that is BS. No way. But so, when you experience it is a little bit different because it's like, oh, okay. So we chose this and we agreed on this. And it's like, oh man, that's hard. That's a hard lesson. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So, I mean, I guess everything is perfect and different for each of us. However, we experience that little lifting of the veil for that little bit of seconds or however long it lasts. It's what we need. Maybe not what we want, but sometimes
Yeah.
it is what we need. And it was a very humbling experience. It's like I felt like the universe
I'll
slapped
bet.
me across the face. Like, you think you what? Boom. Like forget everything you think you know. You don't know anything, it's very humble, very humbling. And
Had you had, were you practicing any spirituality, any religion, anything like that prior to this
oh,
time?
prior to that, I went through so many major world religions looking for
Okay.
God. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I was brought
Okay.
up Catholic, and then I was an atheist, and then I went through like so many religions.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
brought up Catholic and was an atheist for a little while, or at least, I remember claiming that. I don't really
Yeah.
believe I was. So I think I was doing it for shock value with my friends, but
Yeah.
uh, a lot of
Yeah.
parallel stuff, that. And that's, well, I want to keep on going with that. Uh, how did you wake up? Did you,
I'm gonna get into that now.
okay.
Yeah. So I'm not sure how long this whole thing lasted, but I woke up in the morning and I told my wife next to me what had happened. And well, we were both in shock. I just couldn't make sense of any of it at all at that time. I know it sounds weird, but I just
Yeah. And you really make sense of it now, I mean, that's something that's
no, I'm sure
beyond
there's going to be lifetimes I'm probably not even going to make sense of it. Who
beyond
knows?
human understanding.
Yeah. So it was very shocking for me.
Mm.
After we left and we came back to Miami and stuff like that, I reached out to, my teachers. And luckily, I have so many friends that are medicine women and shaman and that work with Akashic Records, and I work with energy work and all these things, psychologists, psychiatrists, because I also am in the medical field. And a lot of them, they're like, that sounds a lot like a near-death experience because you also had your life review in there and all these things. And like, and there's so much of it that I still don't understand. Like I was able to see my higher self or my soul or my oversoul, and get a lot of connecting with that, with that piece of me, which I had no idea I was a soul anyway. Like what, so all of these things that were a shock to me, I had a really hard time to even talk about it with someone that was not within that I felt that could maybe understand it. Like to expand out into family or somebody that might not be able to understand that was difficult for me. I reached out to people that I thought, okay, they could maybe help me ground this or help me kind of, process this a little bit.
Yeah.
It was I'm very grateful for my wife that she didn't judge, she was just there, which is what I needed. Somebody there to really support me through this because it's like almost like you're born again. Like you see things different, you see people different, life different. Um, and it takes a while. Like one of the things that it just started to make sense to me now is music is the answer. that's something God said to me. I'm like, well, what does that even mean? Like, and just recently I started painting. I never painted before, and I guess it's a new part of me, which I'm very grateful that it has, it's being birthed through me. Um, and now I could see my exhibition is going to have a lot of the painting with the different frequency, with the different, so I can kind of see how the little thread of music as the answer is starting to make a little bit of sense. But it's all quite incredible, you know?
Uh, had a guest not long ago that, well, the synchronicity thing. I had a man yesterday. One of the guys I used to sponsor. He's moved on to a new teacher, which is perfectly fine in our world. But his little boy turned 8, and they had his 8th birthday party yesterday. And when I met this man, he was on the verge of divorce, and the little boy was 6 months old. But now he's had 7.5 years of a sober, productive, good dad. And I was standing there talking to his father, and he told me a near death experience from when he was 19 just yesterday. Um, and the story, and I've known him we're friends too. One of the crazy things, I was at Kroger's at the grocery store one day, and down the aisle, some dude hollered, "Dan!" Like, people usually don't yell in the grocery store. And I hear that, I turn my head, and it's Rick running down the aisle to come give me a big hug. They look like, because I helped their son get sober. And so we have a very good relationship. But he just told me that, and I had a guest a couple of weeks ago that her life changing moment was near death experiences. So it's coming in from a. Hope it ain't telling me something too
Oh
bad.
my God, I know. I was gonna say. Yeah, so it's really quite interesting. It really does change you forever. I like to say it's the best thing that happened to me, and I know it sounds kind of like,
I
what do
know.
you mean?
Yep.
But it
I got
really,
I got sentenced, or almost got sentenced to 6 to 20 years in the Indiana Department of Corrections for some crimes I did. And today I look at it, it was the best thing that could have happened to me. What back then it seemed like the worst thing that could happen to me. But today I'm very grateful for that, because that's what kicked off my sobriety. I didn't want to go to prison, and I didn't know if getting sober would change that, but I knew not getting sober wouldn't help it.
it's
And I was sure
beautiful.
I was going to go. And just like this miracle stuff starts happening in your life, that you'd said something when teachers come, that old saying that when the student's ready, the teacher appears. That happened, and I don't even recognize. It's like it is almost, it's like a rebirth, like you said. And I don't even recognize that. It's like there's a veil, like it was a movie or it was something else. That life prior to recovery is.
Yeah,
I've changed so much that people in my hometown that I go to high school with don't recognize me when I walk up. Some,
100%.
I look in the mirror and I look at old pictures, and I don't think I look different, but these people don't recognize me, and I have to remind them who I am. Of course, I do have that gift of remembering names and stuff like that. So,
That's a plus.
but you'd think you'd even maybe not remember my name, but recognize,
Right.
what? I can't remember your name. So I can see how this life-changing moment like that just is completely, it's like a complete transformation. You're a different being before and after some of these kinds of things.
You are, you are. And it's interesting what you said about, part of your life kind of being a movie now, looking back into it. When I had my life review, that's kind of how it felt, except that you feel as you're in like you have the feeling of it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm just grateful that it happened. Just
You
very
know, I,
grateful.
you talked about that depression, and I'm
Oh
grateful
man.
that I haven't dealt with that, but I've seen that. And you described it really well. And it's
Yeah,
another one of the things, kind of like your experience there. It's kind of hard to describe those kinds of deep, deep, deep stuff.
yeah,
Words
and
words are shallow, kind of.
Yeah, and it was so bad that I was suicidal. That's to the
Yeah,
point where it got.
yeah,
I couldn't find the reason to stay. I really couldn't.
yeah.
It made
Other
no
than you had these
sense.
people depending on you.
That's it. Yeah, and now looking back, I would say love kept me going,
Yeah,
you know?
that's. I might go to say that that's the only real thing.
Wow, that's it. I concur with that 100%. And I was going to say that I was going to touch on my view of God again after I would recount this. And I respect everyone's view of God. Whatever your relationship to the divine is, absolutely beautiful. Enjoy it, and it might change and it might transform as the years go by or may not. For me, it has definitely transformed and continues to do so.
It's just
Um,
evolves, changes.
it
See it from
changes.
different angles all the time. And
Yeah.
that's one of the foundational things of 12-step recovery. Your own conception of a higher power. You get to choose, and then nobody judges you for what you chose. That's even better part of it because for the longest time, I was confused. I saw these different people practicing different stuff, and like, who's right? They can't all be right. But I do believe today that they're all right. They're just there are different cultures and different things, and different people are going to see it from different angles, and most of the time, that's the biggest hurdle. In our third step, it has some pretty fancy words. It says that you're going to turn your will and life over to care of God as you understand Him. And I'm not even sure it's a Him. Some people, I don't think it is. It can't be. I don't think it's that binary. But that's a big hurdle for a new guy trying to get sober, thinking he's got because and it says that you make a decision to do that. It doesn't say do that because I don't know
Mm.
how to do that really. But I'm gonna make a decision and I'm gonna try. I'm gonna start doing that. And people think they have to have like a God in place before they make that decision, and you got to bump them off of that stumbling block. And uh, most people seem most people come to 12-step recovery with a block towards any type of spirituality.
And that's okay too. It's
Yep.
part of our own unique journey. Um, just developing that relationship. Like for me now, God is everything and everyone. It's you, it's me, it's my dog, it's my children, it's everyone
Hmm.
and everything. It's on every kingdom. It's that chi, that prana, the life force, right? That runs through all of us. And if others see it differently, that's beautiful too. Who am I to judge anything? Are you kidding me? I've done so many things, like I'm just learning, and trying to stay present and trying to enjoy the journey the best I can. So it's really wonderful. I just hope that we can transcend so much of the separation, and maybe just focus on love as the unifying force. If anything, just question, right? Or is what you're practicing, creating separation of some source, like up here, down here, here, better, worse, right, wrong? Um, or is it bringing us closer together into collaboration, into unity, into peace, into collaboration, to creating a new world? Like, what do you want to live for your children, for your grandchildren? I mean, it sucks now. So, I mean, we definitely got to make some changes. So it's kind of like we are, the change does start with us, I feel. Like I've seen the change, not only myself, but how it has affected my family, my community. So right now, we do a lot of like art events, art, poetry, and personal development in the community. I do it in English, I do it in Spanish. It's my little grain of sand, right? Like how I can affect those that come in contact with my energy, with my field. Are they leaving better than when they came in? Are they feeling lighter, better, more joyful? Are they remembering how to connect with themselves, with their intuition, with their soul? So it's just, yeah, doing the best we can.
And being a force for good in the world.
Amen to that. Yeah.
I, all that theater that goes on, the craziness out there that we put on that TV screen and stuff. And that's one of the things that I stopped watching TV when I did get on home incarceration and to sentenced to a year of it. And my lawyer said, "Are you sure you're going to be able to afford that?" I said, "I can't not afford that." But it cost $100 a week to wear a ankle bracelet. The monitoring cost was that, and that does add up quickly. And I couldn't turn off the gas. I couldn't quit paying insurance. I can't turn off the electric, but I could turn off that cable TV. And I had to detox from it almost, I'm not watching it. And today I can't stand when it's on. You go someplace, I do handyman work in people's homes, and if they've got the TV on, it bugs me. When you go to the dentist office, they got a TV in there, and it
It's
bugs me. If I'm the
everywhere.
only one in there, I'll ask them to mute it, please. Uh,
Yeah.
but um, but where I was going with that is that theater out there and all that. I don't that It's like camouflage somehow because I keep on meeting and in my community, people who are all in service to one another and doing good things and raising the vibration. And I meet people like you and these other guests that come in my podcast. I'm sure my men's home group is named the Spiritual Underground. Every A group has a name and a registered number with a central office in New York. And I when I arrived at the Spiritual Underground, there was a bunch of us, 12 of us exactly, in a 12-step program that was interested in starting a podcast. We thought we had some stuff that was good to share. And that was 7 years ago. And real quick, I always know one of my favorite sayings is alcoholics got a lot of startup and hardly no follow through. They get the good ideas, but they can't stay in it. And it was they one by one, they all peeled off. And I was standing there holding the ball and I had it in my heart to keep it going or to actually get it going. At that time, we hadn't even released a single episode. We had taped some. Um, but this thing with the so that's what because we did that. That's why I named it the Spiritual Underground Podcast because it was those men who started it, and then I know because it has the word spiritual in it that people like you find me. They're not really looking for a 12-step podcast, but because they are dealing with spirit too. Uh, they find me, and then I get this hookup and have these wonderful guests come on. It is that those a long time ago I quit believing in coincidences, and I hardly ever see it happening. But when I say I see everything in the rearview mirror, that's where I see it. I turn around and look and go, just like that little spiritual underground thing. How
Yeah.
it ended up bringing me these guests because of that term is in my podcast name.
That's beautiful.
It's cool.
So I'll speak to synchronicities, just something that happened to me today. That way maybe people look at things from a different lens. And just be curious. You don't have to believe anything, but just be open, be curious. When we're more like a child, we can open our hearts more to understanding life and living life a little bit different, a little bit less heavy. Um, so I just moved to a home with my in-laws because they're elderly and we're taking care of them. And, it's kind of harder for me to go to their home, take care of them and come back to mine, etc. And then we just all moved together. I just went to Home Depot looking for some drywall compound. And the only thing I found on there was a huge bucket, and I'm looking for something small. And I was like, I can't even. It's just too much for me. Home Depot, it's beyond my capabilities. So I'm like, okay, forget it. I'll just tell my dad to go buy some. Um, and I'm like, oh, I just wasted an hour going to Home Depot for nothing, you know? Well, right before I was exiting Home Depot, a friend of mine that I had not seen in 10, 12 years, Jasmine, we saw each other. We exchanged numbers again because I had changed my phone number. I'm like, I'm here looking at God like, I
Yep.
see what I see it. I see it why I came to Home Depot. And it was never about the freaking compound anyway. So
Yep. Yep.
I
I
couldn't
love
even
that.
be mad. So yeah.
Yeah, I do that move real often, and I'm grateful that I get to. But when things happen, I'll look up and okay, yep, I see. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's beautiful. It's just a journey.
Yep. It's getting this change. It's a living in a different plane almost, and I imagine you feel the same way. When you're at Home Depot, there's a whole bunch of people just muddling along, and I feel like I'm floating through. And nowadays, most of the time, and of course, I'm in those stores a lot with my handyman business. I'm in, around here, it's Lowe's, Menards, and Home Depot. And I'm in one of them three stores almost daily. I will be at Lowe's here in a little bit because a client just changed something I'm working for this week, just texted me a little bit ago and changed the plan. So I will get some more from what he said the other day. And like you said, there might be a reason for that. I'll leave it open. Maybe it ain't about that. He wants more handrails. It's not about the additional handrail. But I
Yeah.
like living. I like living on that plane. It's like the optimism of a little kid. We talk about that a lot too. And most little kids, you can see that we call it in the 12 step in the Alcoholics Anonymous book, happy, joyous, and free. And when we do an exercise when I'm sponsoring you, if a guy can get to it, I get him to go back and look in a photo album and find them little kid pictures of himself. Find one that's where he was happy, where the lights were on in his eyes still. And I did that at my sponsor had me do that exercise, and my mom had made me a photo album when I got married. I had my baby pictures in it all the way up to when I got married and gave that to me. And so when my sponsor gave me that assignment, I knew right where I was going to get that picture. And I can turn the pages and I can see happy, joyous, and free in lit up eyes, shining eyes. And then I can turn a few pages and see that the lights went out at some point. And but that's where our goal, one of the analogies we use is to get back to let that little kid out to play, and to live like that. You was at that birthday party and those watching those little boys just play and wrestle around, and because his dad is on this plane also, he's not going, stop it, don't do that, and he's letting them boys be boys. And that's a beautiful thing to see them play and kick around. And I also picked up that there was a girl there and she was standing back about 10 feet, kind of like, she didn't, you could see like she almost like a mom look or something like settle down, kids. But I also saw in her eyes that she wanted to be in that wrestling match
That
too.
play.
I could see to play in there. I don't know where that ended. We walked upstairs after a few minutes and went back to adult areas and let the kids play. But getting back to that child, that I always say that is taught. We were born perfect, pure, exact. And then what happens is we get out here in this crazy world, and something or some things step on your spirit. It's like there was boot prints in my spirit, just stomped me, and I got to that part where I kind of like your depression thing, but for me, I picked up alcohol and dope, so that camouflaged it, and that worked really good for a long time. I had a long run of about 30 years.
Oh, that
Um,
is pretty long. Hmm.
yeah, a
Yeah.
long time, and really didn't get. I mean, I had a few DUIs, but I really didn't have many consequences until that final thing. When alcohol quit working, I went to the pain pills, and then I got strung out on them real bad, and ended up. I was going. It was like 2012 to 2014, someplace in that neighborhood, breaking in houses because you could find the pills in everybody's house. I mean, looking back, I'm like, because I never bought any. I supported my entire habit by breaking in houses, stealing pain pills out of people's medicine cabinets and stuff, just the old ones.
You know
And
what, Dan? If you don't mind, for us to kind of, like you said, nothing is coincidences. I'm very passionate about what you just mentioned, especially coming from healthcare. Um, do you mind if I touch on what you just said? Yeah.
okay,
That's
this is
something
an
that,
open forum.
yeah, that's something that really, and I see it in my family, because when it hits close to home, maybe when you see it in others, it doesn't really affect you, right? Or if it's not you, you really don't feel it. But I see it everywhere. I see it in my patients, I see it in my family. And it just does not resonate with me. The fact that people come in, with depression symptoms or with also spiritual awakening symptoms. Not all of them are, not all of them are necessarily mental health conditions. Um, but, and here's your prescription. That's not going to fix anything. Yeah, I mean, that may keep you alive, and may help you sleep, and may help you with the pain, but it's really not going to address the underlying issues that we have. Inner child work, shadow work, reparenting, all of the somatic work. How do you even regulate your nervous system when you have a panic attack? Okay. So yeah, it's in every, yeah, it's almost in every household. Um, and we're not addressing the patient as a whole. We're missing something. And to me, a lot of that missing is our own inside connection to source from within. Because once you build that, it changes everything for you. It changes your health, it changes your mindset, it changes your habits. It's almost like that embodying of Christ consciousness or whatever you believe in. It doesn't even matter. You embody a totally different, even personality. You're just reborn. You regain back your power and you stop kind of being that victim. It does not happen overnight, or it took like 7 years for me, this whole process. And it's still
Mm,
unfolding. But it's not something that I was like, oh, that's it. After my near death, that's it. Yeah, no, absolutely not. It's like that's when the work started. Like I just started. So, but it's really, we need to start asking the bigger questions, right? Like, is this really, do I want to get to the end of my life taking all of these pills and not asking any questions at all?
yeah,
Like, I'm okay with that answer. I'm okay with that solution. I don't know. Just something
I
to
agree.
to
This 12-step recovery is just that too. These different modalities. Well, I personally believe I haven't seen anything personally work better, especially for this. In 4 to 6 months, I'll change a man. He will be unbelievable. But it takes a little time, and we have to do that digging, and we got to go in there and do that inventory. And that's what I'm hearing you like. At some level, it's a life review, as you said. And your experience. Because we're going to go back through our lives, and we're going to write all this stuff down. And then I'm going to tell that to you, to my sponsor. I'm going to talk about this stuff that I've been burying. People think they're not, we do, well, they call it a resentment list, but I just think it's write down the things in your life that impacted you. And we do them people, places, and institutions, or principles, people, principles, and institutions. And they think they weren't not going to have many. And then they have these whole notebooks full, guys have got 100, 200, a whole bunch of stuff because when we're asking them to tap into source, say a little prayer, ask our power to help you find these names, meditate for a few minutes. And when the names start coming, pick up your pen and start puke them out, we say. And so we do that. And then we also go clean up that inventory process and digging in and doing that life review. And then that's going out and making things right with the people you've harmed and going doing the amends process. Between those two things, a guy will again, he transforms and he doesn't recognize himself. And in that process, he doesn't have to try and get in touch with source. That you don't really have to try. You have to take some actions. You got to reach your hand out a little,
right.
but the process will do that. And so, and they get off the pills. They're on depression pills. They're on uh, various. I don't even know what they are, but they're on various. It's making noise in my computer. They'll stop taking they high blood pressure, but they come off the blood pressure pills. They come off the mental health pills. Obviously we don't. There's certain ones that are like against the rules, like opioids and heroin and all that stuff. But they get off of everything, and they don't need the alcohol in their lives, and they have a brand new connection with the world. And why doesn't medicine work kind of more like that? I understand. Like if you have an infection,
Right.
you might need an antibiotic, right?
Right.
But that's just for a minute. That's not
That's
like
my point. That's my
forever.
point. I'm not against meds. I just think everything has its place and time. Like if you want to harm yourself or you want to harm another being, I think, okay, maybe we can look into some short-term solutions with meds or with, getting some support or looking but is that going to be lifetime?
Yeah.
Like
Yep.
that's not it. right?
Yep.
So
My mother passed away in 2016, and she was just chronic health problems all her life, and and multiple cancers.
wow.
And I think, let me look at this real quick.
Yeah. How old was she?
72. I think I got something sending off some kind of notifications. I'm gonna go over and see what I can turn off. It's not there. Where I was going with that, when she passed, the amount of medications would fill a whole backyard garbage can. Can you hear that? You hear a beeping? I'm hearing it like over and over. It's beep 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 beep. I do these things every week,
No,
and I
no
don't.
beeping on my end.
I'm glad if you're not hearing it. I'm hoping it's
No,
not getting recorded.
I don't think so.
The amount of medication she had was phenomenal. What happened is she was a pain pill addict who uh, surgeries and stuff, and I think she wasn't the kind of addict I was. Like I was a alcoholic drug taker. She got dependent upon them through surgeries and stuff like that. Um, and there's a little difference. I think the same solution would work, and that's actually where I started taking them to begin with was hers. So had she not been fed multiple doctors giving her multiple prescriptions, and she had neck surgery, and she had a stroke during the surgery. And I come in there kind of hot and heavy, emotionally charged, right? And I want to talk to the doctor to, how this happened. And they did a tox on her, and she was all loaded up with narcotics. And they didn't know that, and anesthesiologist needs to know that kind of thing. And so that made a terrible intersection, and she lived for about 6 more months, and it was a rough time. And for some of that, I was on home incarceration, so that was not fun either. Because I would she would make it home, and she would fall down, and Dad couldn't get her up, and he would call me to help. And I would just call down to the probation office and tell them I'm going to, you're not supposed to do that. But they never gave me any grief over that at all, and that's their one. I was being protected because the compass needle was in the north position. I was doing everything that I was supposed to be doing. So you get some leeway, you get let off the hook a little bit. That's another real fascinating thing.
Yeah.
This deal when you get this garbage wrestled through and reconciled, and we talk about like we have a backpack, a garbage can with backpack straps, and as you go through life, everything that you experience goes in the backpack, and there's some good things in that backpack, and there's some bad things in that backpack. But it's like the barrel of apples with a rotten apple in it. The bad makes everything a little bit dirty, and even the good stuff can't be as good. And we dump that garbage can out. Well, you dump it out with your sponsor, and you sort through it. You reconcile the bad stuff and put it where it belongs in the past, and clean up the good stuff and put it up on the shelf. And then you got a garbage can. When we come to 12-step recovery, that stuff is sloshing out of your backpack. It stinks. You're afraid other people smell it. You won't get close to nobody because they'll smell your junk. And when you get done with it, you got a nice clean garbage can with about 25% full. You got capacity for life's bumps and bruises. And when that can's full, and you have those bumps, those are those derail you. Uh, I just like that analogy too.
I was gonna
Thank you
say
to my sponsor.
I love that. I love that analogy. I resonate with that 100%. Absolutely.
Is there is your occupation in this field? Are you still a nurse practitioner
So
or
I'm still a nurse practitioner, but I do have a private practice that I do psychospiritual therapy as well as psychedelic integration. So those are the main two I do on my private practice side of things. Yeah.
that's that's a barrel full of power from what it sounds like to
Mm.
me with the nurse practitioner
Hmm.
training, and then
Yeah.
this more spiritual energy healing kind of side of things is we need more doctors like that, I think.
With my actual patients, when I sit down and have a conversation with them, it's far beyond any prescription. Our conversation have shifted. My communication with my patients have taken a whole nother level. We end up talking about everything else except like maybe what, even what the chief complaint was. Like it just takes a whole different depth. And they open up and they let that grief out or that pain out. And I do take a little bit longer with my patients. I do. And patients have to wait, but they love that.
What about
So
on insurance?
no, well, my patients are private patients. Yeah, no,
Okay,
no,
yeah,
no,
I was going to think that
no,
because
no,
that's
no.
another
I don't think the
that
insurance
seems to
would
be
reimburse any of,
yeah,
unfortunately.
that's what I'm getting at is that seems to be what's driving medicine is insurance, not patient care. And when you get, the insurance is only going to pay you for a 15-minute visit, all the doctor has time to do is get a prescription pad out,
That's it. That's it. There's nothing
run,
else.
order
Yeah.
some tests,
Hmm.
order tests and write prescriptions.
Yeah. I think, we go into this vocation wanting to help, wanting to make a difference. I believe humanity at heart has good intentions. I think just like you say, when we're children, we come in whole and perfect. And we begin to kind of dilute our essence um, with with the programming, with the experiences, with the traumas, it becomes obscure. And it's almost like there's a cloud covering the sun that you already are, you know?
Yeah.
Um, and I think Carl Jung goes into that very well in his Red Book, right? Like kind of the first half of our life, it's outside, right? And then that second half, it's more going on the inside, going
Yeah. Yep.
within, finding
Yeah.
your true self, your connection to your soul, and the archetypes that live within you, right? We have so many archetypes if you really dig into your psyche, that play out through our lifetime. So it's really peeling back all of that stuff that is you or perceived as you.
Perceived
Uh,
as you and getting to what's really in there that is actually you.
correct. Correct.
Carl Jung had something to do. I keep pointing that way because I got an AA big book sitting there, but I can point that way, and I got an AA big book sitting that way too. So, but he's actually could be it could be said that he had a big piece of starting post-up recovery. He's actually quoted one of the real early guys before even Bill Wilson and Dr. Bob got together, which is when they count in 1935 when those two got together. That was like what's counted as the beginning of AA. But some predecessors trying to get sober back then because they just throwed them in the loony bin back then. That's if you were alcoholic, they just locked you up. Uh, uh, One of them had gone to Carl Jung in Switzerland and stayed there for a year and got sober, got drunk before he made it back home. So he goes back and he asks the doctor, I was doing great. What happened? Is there any hope at all? And there's a beautiful, if I could find it fast, but he says, but here and there, once in a while, people have is what I like to call a vital spiritual experience. These things are phenomena which we don't really understand. And that's what, that's like the precipice of what we're doing here is to get giving a guy doing some work that'll get him that spiritual awakening and it says in there a few times that we're spiritually sick. It's not really the alcohol. The alcohol and the dope and the bottles is just a symptom of the problem. It's really something that where our spirit is sick, and what we got to do is heal that spirit. Once that gets healed, I don't need to drink anymore. You
Right.
know,
I love that. Um, After we get off, I would love to gift something for your group. It's a free program if you like for them to try it. I think it might really help.
it's coming to me. I've talked about it on the air before, but I have a 19-year-old daughter who a couple of years ago come to me. Actually, it was on my eighth sobriety birthday. On my birthday, come to me and told me she was on the fentanyl. She was 17 then. and she's not doing the harder drugs anymore, but she's really struggling. And just like you were talking about, and as I'm talking to you, you are making me think of my daughter, not because of as maybe somebody who may be able to help her.
I would love to. That's okay.
Somebody. So
I I would love to have a sit
I
down
was
with
going to
her.
ask,
And no charge. I'll have a conversation with her, and whatever I can do, you can count on that.
and I love your energy, and I love what direction you're coming from, and everything in my heart wants to help her, but I know it ain't gonna be me. I can support her.
Yeah.
I can
Yeah.
love her, and really I can pray for her, and I can love on her, but
Hmm.
nothing else that I know. That's another thing in 12-step recovery. It's some stranger's going to save you. Sometimes guys like have a friend and they want to sponsor their friend. It never works. Never ever works. It's always a stranger.
Yeah. It's beautiful. Yeah, I would love
But
to.
thank you.
That'd be my honor to do that. Yeah.
So uh, my sponsor and I also do another podcast. We call it the I Am One Two podcast. It's a
Hmm.
letter. It looks like iPad kind of. It's got the small I,
Okay.
a letter M,
Hmm.
1 2. And so
Oh,
what it really is I am one too. I am one also, right? And we can put that frame that in a few different ways. I too am a struggling human trying to figure out this how to do
this
this
great
crazy
mystery.
world.
Hmm. Yeah.
I too am a person who is trying to be a better version of myself at one day at a time.
One day at a
So
time.
it's just trying, and we frame it on the 12 steps, but the 12 steps is everybody looks at it and sees it. It's got that stigma that you're a dopehead or an alcoholic, right? Automatically. 12, I don't, 12 steps won't help me. And we started a program here in Louisville, Kentucky, where we're offering the 12 steps to anybody that wants to walk in the door. And it's cool. It's doing the same thing as what we do in the other 12 step. People don't really have an overwhelming problem like gambling or compulsive eating or alcoholism, addiction, but they just are not happy. Something's missing. There's got to be more to life than this.
That's the
Uh,
question I asked myself. There's got to be more to life. It can't be just this.
yep. So we offer that up, and it's beautiful. It's uh, Christopher, my sponsor, he's just celebrated 40 years this past May, and he's also been working in chemical dependency and substance abuse treatment center for 22 years or something. And he's got a great deal of wisdom, and he's had some really good teachers, and he will always credit them as I try to also. I didn't bring it. I didn't bring anything to the table but this dude. Everything I got good to say, somebody taught me. Uh, but he's rewriting the 12 steps as a generic thing that will allow everybody in. And we also, in the meetings, we say, "Hi, I'm Dan. I am one too," instead of saying, "Hi, I'm Dan. I'm alcoholic." And it caught on to that. I get credit for it. One day we're trying to find something to do because if I meet you in the grocery store, I'm liable to say, "Hi, I'm Dan. I'm an alcoholic." It's just and I don't really think I am anymore. Really, I know we say we're never cured, but I'm certainly a recovered alcoholic. But I think I say that because we're on the same team. That's really all we're doing in those rooms is saying, "Hey, I am one too." So I am one too works just as well. And adoption, generally you don't sponsor across genders. It's usually best if a man sponsors a man or a woman sponsors a woman. There's exceptions to that. Uh, it might be better, it might work different for somebody who is gay. Uh, that might not, just keeps that friction out of it. But we had to because there was only men in this meeting that had the tools. And we had to somehow transfer these tools to some of these women that were hungry for them. And if we had a woman that had them, we'd have said, see her. So I had the opportunity to sponsor cross gender. I was scared about that and know how that was going to work beautifully. I had to know. I took a number of them through the work. I've been real fortunate that God, I usually say God, uh, has sent a lot of people my way. I'm sure the same thing kind of happens to you. As you're just like you're standing here like with this glowing energy and it's radiating, and you're sending it into the universe, and God says, "Here, help this one."
Yep,
here, help this one.
that's
And
exactly how it is.
yeah, and
Yep.
I've had an opportunity to do that with quite a few, and it brought stuff to the table. Brought me some perspective that I would not have gotten had I not done that. And then that got the tools in the women's group. And the women's group, they have their own meeting on Tuesday nights, and it's flourishing. Uh,
Beautiful. Dan, I would love to really gift you for, you can use it both groups. The program, that would be just as an add-on.
sure, yeah. So we
People
say we
can,
add to. That's what it's about. After you get the monkey off your back big time and you've gone through the work, you got to find ways to add to your life,
yeah,
things that improve it. And
yeah.
I'd have never thought I was going to do this, but I was 4 years sober and decided to become a yoga teacher.
Ah, very
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, right before COVID too. And I really didn't really want to teach. I wanted to strengthen my own practice. That was really my main goal. And then right as I got done and graduated, COVID shut down every yoga studio around here, and I had strengthened my own practice just in time. It was awesome. How can people find you? And I also want you to. I'll look at the emails and see. Maybe we'll exchange a couple emails to make sure I'm getting everything noted that needs to be noted.
Absolutely. The easiest way to find me is on Instagram at Quantum Alchemist Master.
I don't know why I had to write it. It's going to be recorded, and I can listen to it again. I'll probably find that in some of those emails too,
I
and
can
I
I
will.
can just email you back all the info. That way you have it like the
Yeah.
latest all in one
Uh,
email. Yeah.
Most of the time, one of the first things I do when I get done with the podcast is go follow my guests.
Thank you so
One
much.
thing is I'm going to do a little promotion and I'll put some stuff out and then I can tag you, right? It's
Thank you.
easy.
I
So,
will make sure to leave also a 5-star review for your podcast.
oh, well, thank you.
And I would love to extend an invitation for you to be a guest on mine if you like.
I would love to do
I
that.
think your story, it's going to help so many people because it's never just about alcohol or, it's way beyond that.
Yep. Yep.
So,
I had, I'm convinced today that everything is rooted in childhood. You, for a lot of years, the 12-step community wouldn't go there. And it's just probably in the past 10 years have it's starting to be opened up uh, to actually discussing it in meetings and having it part of your step work and stuff. When they, as the old running joke is, if you go back and listen to old speaker tapes, there's all kinds of speakers on AA on the internet. Uh, they'll start their talk out when they started drinking, and probably what has happened, happened before they started drinking and in between in that window more so than. And when I have guests on here, I always try to see if they'll go back, and most of them are open to talking about it because, like I said, it's not the dope and the booze ain't the deal. It's something that spirit got boot prints in it. You gotta wash them boot prints out of there.
you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna do a Google Drive and I'm actually gonna name it 12 step something. I don't know yet, whatever the divine wants to call it. And I'm gonna put in there certain tools. That way you can share it and you have it all in one place.
Awesome.
Um, and it really goes beyond. It goes into childhood, it goes into subconscious mind, reprogramming, it goes a lot deeper than so. And there's a lot of good stuff on there that might work for everybody that you come across with. And feel free to share that at no charge. There is no point in what I do in keeping it for myself or taking it when I go into transition. The whole point of this is to share it.
Yep. Yep.
So
But one of the best things about 12-step recovery is it's virtually free.
yeah, yeah.
We put $1 in the hat every meeting so we can pay the building that we're using a little rent. That's to be self-supporting, and that's it.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah. And
Beautiful.
that's what I get back from the universe from doing this stuff. cannot be, it can't even, you can't even talk like money or anything with it. It's just, it's
It's not about
walking
that.
guys,
It's beyond
walking
that.
guys through this work is fills me up so much. And then, but I think at some level, it's like, I get the best handyman clients a guy could ever want. I walk in there, they've got, they have a whole lot of money. I end up with doctors and lawyers, and so it's kind of. I don't think that's a coincidence either that I'm getting paid, just not for this.
Right,
Got to keep the
right.
lights on. Got to keep food in the refrigerator. You got to keep gas in
Yeah.
the car.
And you never know where. Let me ask you, are you being a guest on other podcasts as well?
Sometimes that's my favorite is when somebody else has a podcast that we can like cross pollinate. Is the way I like to call it. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm on. I do a most of the time if my guest has a podcast, I'll be on theirs too.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because I feel like you just never know what door that could open. Um, yeah, just thinking
Yeah, don't.
about, I don't know if there might be a way to kind of try to get sponsors for your podcast. I really don't know what the process for that is, but
Yeah, I've toyed around with it a little bit, and I don't know. There's something repelling me. I'm not being drawn to it, and I kind
uh,
of go with that today. Now
yeah,
something pops up like that, and
yeah, I
you
don't
know, I,
know. I'm just thinking of way because what you're doing is so important. And I don't know, we're just mirrors of each other, so we're just bouncing off
yeah,
ideas.
yeah.
I don't know if maybe reaching out to recovery centers that are already established and seeing if they might be willing to sponsor your podcast, like with a monthly contribution or something. I
Yeah.
don't know, but something to start monetizing and growing. Um, you just never know because you're doing so much of a great work. I feel like the universe
Well,
definitely
thank
has
you.
to open a door for you.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
This is my drug today. I
Yeah.
get high doing these podcasts.
And
You
this is
know,
a good one.
I just get, yeah, I just have fun doing it. The universe keeps sending me the best people, and I get a lot of requests to be on my podcast, and I'm not that big a podcast. I've been doing it a while. I mean, I got over 300 episodes
Oh,
over
wow.
um, doing them once a week. Or January will be going into the seventh year
What a
of
bit.
doing it. So it's one thing I do have follow through. I'm not like I, I got a little tenacious deal in me that I don't give up easy. Uh,
Amen to that.
yeah, and,
All right, my
yeah,
love. Well,
I could put that out to the universe too. Maybe since you brought it to my attention to about again, things seem to. I like one of my favorite sayings is the skids are greased. And I don't know where I heard it. Most people don't understand what I'm saying, but it's like
no.
being like rails or something. And I got a part
Mm,
that I'm pushing on it, and the skids are
got
greased, and
it.
everything just rolls right along.
Oh, I like
Uh,
that.
with very little energy, things just fall in my path in better ways that I can orchestrate. So I I don't really orchestrate my life. I just kind of live it, and good things are happening. Wonderful miracles. I have a miracle list that I
Miracles.
keep in my phone.
Yes.
That is a big list of miracles, like not going to prison. That was a miracle. There was no reason that they didn't. I was certain, and my lawyer was certain, and the judge was certain that I was going to do some time, and I didn't, and for no real reason other than I started living right. I started doing the things and started walking this path, and they didn't know it. They didn't. Actually, the lawyer told the judge, well, Mr. Reeves is planning on going to uh, a recovery treatment center. And the judge said, well, if Mr. Reeves thinks he needs to do that, that's fine with me. But I'm here to deal with the crimes he's committed. I mean, just straight up didn't care a bit. And so I know it wasn't. I, I
That's
know
it.
what happened today, but I have this miracle list. I can go back. It's like a long-term gratitude list, And I had a guest the other day that she does work like you do, similar kind of stuff. She her podcast is the Skeptical Shaman,
Okay.
uh, and I was on her podcast. Um,
Cool.
Wednesday, I think it was. Uh, but she has a tool that she works with her clients, and they do that. She has them as these good things start turning in their lives. She makes them. She has them journal them and keep them. And so it's the same tool that my sponsor gave me.
I
He
think
does
that's a beautiful message. I think I'm going to start doing that. Thank you for that.
because he's my sponsor told me there was some really trippy stuff happening, like real miracle stuff. I mean, you can't do coincidence. I'll be here all day. If I maybe when I'm on your podcast, I'll talk about some of them.
Cool.
Uh,
Yeah.
but he said you better write this stuff down because he said in a few years you won't remember it unless your memory's prompted. It'll be just old news. And today I can pick that thing up. And let's just say I'm a little bit down today. I hardly ever am. Dealing with some of the stuff over my daughter, that can really pull
Mhm.
some strings in me that nobody else can.
Yeah.
I'm pretty bulletproof today, for the most part. And I'll pull that list up, man, and look at God
Yeah.
didn't bring me this far to drop me off here. So
That's right. That's right.
just wait for the next. I can't wait to add the next one to the list.
That's it.
The optimism of a small child.
Thank you for that. It's a huge reminder for me. So I will begin to do that. And I take your message. Thank you.
Good deal. Well,
All right, my love. Thank you again. I'm gonna send you the email now with all this stuff,
okay.
and you can have your daughter contact me via email, and we can set up the first consult and see
Okay.
what happens from there. Yeah,
I will give her a holler.
yeah,
Oh, forgot to ask you. You okay with me using the video too?
yeah.
Okay, cool. I usually like to ask that.
Sure.
This spiritual underground podcast was primarily audio for the longest time.
Okay.
Um, and then when Christopher and I started the IM 2 when I got cameras, and then I was putting the IM 2s
Cool.
on YouTube, but not and I was doing Zoom. So I got the video here and I wasn't
Anyway,
doing both, but I like to have that permission to use
please go ahead.
I should try to get in front of that so that you're beautiful and your background is beautiful. Is that your painting?
It is not one of my
Oh,
paintings. It was a gift, but it has a
gift. Yeah.
very deep spiritual meaning for me, the blue
It's a
butterfly.
beautiful painting. Yeah. Those kind of gifts we do that. My house is decorated around here with gifts. I do a retreat once a year out of the place I got. We got
Oh,
some acreage out in about an hour away from here.
nice.
My brother, and me built a log cabin on it 25 years ago. This year, it was November. We finished it 25 years ago in November, and built that thing drinking beer, smoking dope the whole time. And then later on, I got sober. I take my guys out there. We spend the night. That's where we go do fifth steps in a safe place. It's in the energy that's building up down there, and then these retreats. And a couple of years ago, it dawned on me as I looked in the rearview mirror what God was doing 25 years ago. He was building this place for this kind of stuff. And so there's a big picture, one of these big canvas pictures from the group over here on the wall, from this past years that a guy gave me, gifts.
Beautiful. Usually how many people you get for your retreats?
I found that for a few years I was cutting it off around 20 or a few more. This year I just opened it up a couple years ago. It got too big for me to manage, like food and stuff, because this
Mm.
is out in the boonies, and feeding 25 guys ain't no easy task
Oh
all
man.
weekend long. So this year I said, all right, everybody can come, feed yourselves.
Oh, I like that. Good
Bring
idea.
your own stuff. We got grills, we got stove, we got, bring, and what most people I've said, well, why don't like 4 or 5 of you get together and plan your all's meals, and then 4 or 5 of you get together and plan your meals. And that worked out really well. And I had
Wow.
the Saturday night meeting, I had, I think it was 36 guys there. And there was
Mm.
about 30 for the whole weekend,
Nice.
that
You do
stayed the
this
whole weekend.
once a year?
Yeah. And it's again, I've been doing this since somehow or another, God allowed me to do this when I was 18 months sober. Had no business being qualified and doing all the
Oh,
imposter shit. You know,
Life University will qualify you. Don't
yeah.
don't even.
But
Yeah.
my group was going and having one, and they had a retreat, just a day retreat, to pitch in thing, and they went to the forest down in Jefferson County, Kentucky. I actually live in Southern Indiana, um, and I couldn't go because it was in across the county line, and I was on home incarceration. They let me go to Jefferson County, but they wouldn't let me go outside of Jefferson County. I mean, it's like 2 miles outside the county line, and I couldn't go. And they came back, and they had a great time, and they were all glowing, and you could see them at the next meeting. That's all they talked about. But the only complaint is he said the lack of privacy in that public place. Because we get to talking about some fairly sensitive stuff that you just don't want to get up, shout off. and,
Right.
and I thought, I got that place out there. And I talked to my sponsor, and I guess after a while, because I couldn't go there when I was on home incarceration either. I couldn't go out to my place. That changed the energy of the place from when it was drinking and that to when no drinking and that. And I said something to him, and he said, "Sure, let's do it." And so I throwed out the invitation, and 20 guys come down, spent one night. And I thought, wow. And then I was so jacked up over it as the springtime. I had another one in the fall, and they came up again. And then I had another one. So the first 2 years, I had two a year. This one was the 10th one.
Nice.
Beautiful. It's so cool. And everybody looks forward to it. I make t-shirts
Oh,
um,
that is sounds
and it just
wonderful.
brings us so tight,
Yeah.
I mean,
Is it just
this
men?
group, yeah, it's just men.
Beautiful. I'm really happy to see because we do have a lot of women group, but it's rare to see men coming together like that, and it's beautiful. I'm very
Yeah,
happy for you.
I'm so blessed.
Good.
Because I know right now, I was thinking it was my Discord. Discord is it's like a group chat
Yeah.
thing.
Hmm.
We have one, and we're in there monkeying
Cool.
around all day long every day. And I thought that's what the
Ah,
alert
that
was.
little beep was.
It hasn't come back since I looked for it. uh, but we have a lot of tools that bring us really tight. And all I would have to do right now, if I had needed anything, if I posted in that Discord, uh, I would have it in a few minutes. It just meant support. I had a meltdown the other night over something that really hurt me. Made me really, really, really sad. It's even making me bring tears to my eyes as I'm thinking about it again. Um, and I posted it on there because we talk about that. It's a safe place to share. I have to get it up and out of me, or else if I just let it sit, it gets yucky. And
100%.
and I my phone rings, and my buddy Shane said, "I'm coming over. Hang on." And then he come over, and he's with me for a couple hours. So I was discharged enough that I could go to bed. And it's just so cool to have that community around me and us. I can't. It's just unreal. It's kind of like it's like trying to describe your near death experience. I don't have words. I can't communicate it. Tears in my eyes probably communicate it more than anything.
Hmm.
It
It's
is
beautiful.
super cool.
Well, I
So
hope
we
whatever
kind
it
of
is
keep
that
on. Go
whatever you're
ahead.
going through, trust that it's a process, that it's an unfolding. Let go of whatever is not under your control. That's and trust that you're being held, you're being guided at all times, even if you can't see it.
That is you had talked about that earlier, and that is a tough thing, ain't it? It's a tough thing to allow these people that you love, to have their journeys. And my sponsor
Oh
says that
man.
over and over and over again to me. Gotta let them have their journey. Gotta let them have their journey. You don't know what's going on. You just have to trust that it's all work out. And fact is, for at least well, it's always all worked out. As I look back, it's always worked out. Especially in the last 10 years, now that I'm awake, be a little more conscious to that working out. So yeah, but it is tough. It's tough to do with sponsees. It's tough to do with these other alcoholics who can't seem to get it, and some of them die. Way more die than. Honestly, I never knew death like I know death since I've come to recovery. I mean, it's not a week goes by that somebody, at least a couple, like that, what's that, 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon or something? I can't remember. You know what I'm talking about?
Mm-mm.
There was something for a while that like everybody was 7 degrees away from Kevin Bacon, that movie star. But it might be a friend's friend, or it might be a friend's cousin, or, and it might be a few steps out that I didn't really know them, but I know of their passing. It's crazy. So, we said we had that opioid epidemic, right? But alcohol kills 5 times as many people every year. 500,000 people died from alcohol related stuff, where we're losing 100,000 on opioids. And we've had we've had an alcohol epidemic, maybe forever.
I was gonna say, because alcohol's been around for much longer.
Yeah, yeah, talked about in the Bible. Yeah, but
Thank you, my dear, for
we keep
everything.
on.
Thank you for
Yeah,
having
thank
me.
you.
May
We
you
keep on
continue
jumping
to
out on
do
tangents,
great work.
and you as well.
Thanks.
I really love meeting these people. It's a force for the good. I'll be watching for your email.
Yes, I'm gonna send it. Thank you, Dan.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Thank
Have a
you.
beautiful day.
You too.
Thanks.